Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a general collective reading. There are no signs attached to it, so only take it if it resonates for you within the first couple of minutes. So just to get started, there's a lot of blue energy that's coming in. Same thing with yesterday's reading as well. But actually there was something blue that was missing from yesterday's reading. So it's kind of like it's coming in today. Because I'm using all this, like all the decks that wanted to come through today were blue. And they have a lot of moon energy within them. So maybe somebody's working with their moon energy. And then I thought just to balance it, I would bring in some orange. And so I just randomly flipped open a page in this book. And the page that we got was snow, which is really interesting because where I am right now, it's summer. It's super hot out. But I'm going to read part of like what's just sort of sticking out to me in this reading. So wind and weather. So the print, the midair suspension of snowflakes suggests an almost magical suspension of time. A slowing down of the world. Interesting. It can also reflect light, right? Containing, like all symbols, powerful opposites, snow seems to bind fire and ice. Interesting. You know when something's so cold that it almost burns, right? So there's something interesting here about like... Okay, sorry, I'm just reading what it says. So there's a really powerful energy here of opposites, but it's not. Like something that appears warm, but is not. It could be in any way that is interesting. So it appears blue, but it's not. Perhaps something that appears cold, but it's warm. It could be that as well. That's very interesting. Okay, so we'll see how that comes through. What the message is. Iron. There's the orange, right? This is a Mars energy. It's interesting. Well, it's not quite a burn, but I was ironing something today and I burned my finger. I touched the iron by accident. I was like, well, that's interesting. It didn't leave like a significant mark, but that's really interesting. Okay, so that's a Mars energy, right? Magnetism, reliability, and Mars. Iron is a reliable metal that can withstand great pressure. Over the centuries, we have come to utilize this metal extensively, mixing it with carbon to create the steel bridges, highways, and infrastructures that span across the globe. In alchemy, iron is associated with the planet Mars and shares its qualities of being strong, assertive, and potentially warlike. When the iron card appears, there's a call to rely only on the reliable. What truly supports you? What have you already built? Iron dwells at the center of earth, so when all else feels lost, go inward. There's a deep magnet there that pulls you towards what is steady and true. For the moment, put your words and weapons down and let yourself be held by the structure that is already in place. Interesting. Mars and iron are associated with the gallbladder. It may be time to contemplate what can be broken down and what must remain. Okay, so there's that orange energy. It's bringing in Mars. And there's an energy here of opposites as well. So obviously the iron card talks about strength. In yesterday's reading, there was a mention of a feminine hunter energy, which can kind of come through as being like, because those are traditionally speaking sort of like opposite energies, like feminine energy and the hunter energy are usually opposite. Not always though. Because in like Greek mythology, a lot of like the huntress is Artemis, which is a feminine energy. Anyways, I'm gonna pull more cards. That's interesting. So it's asking about reliability. What do you find like very reliable in your life? So it might be something to do with that, but I actually feel like there's something changing about what is reliable. Perhaps there is a reliable structure that is changing in some way. And the uncreated. Sun at the bottom of the deck. Okay. And Venus underneath that. That's really interesting because iron, I'm seeing like, or I'm getting the download of like Hephaestus, which is the Greek god who like creates all the like, it's Mars. So he like creates the weapons and things, right? Like the forge. And now I'm getting the energy of the Mandalorian, like a great forge. Interesting. So maybe you're forging something here, like creating something within like the great fire, whatever that means. Could be sun energy. And with the Venus card as well. Perhaps this is also taking some sort of like physical effort is how it's coming through, because Mars also represents sort of like the physical body or physicality in some way. So it could be something to do with like your physical body. Or perhaps making, I feel like so something about structure. The unconceived, the seed of the seed. There was a time when everyone you know was not yet born, when every city was yet to be named, when your favorite song was yet to be sung. Such is the energy of the uncreated. This card indicates the subtle but profound force that summons all that will be into existence. This most sacred of formulas cannot be manufactured, contained, bought, or sold. It is the pure intelligence of creation, pulsing at the door of reality. Its timing is precise, and it is happening now. Do not delay. Send an invitation to the uncreated. Allow it to formulate and gestate. Soon a sketch, a map, or a name will draw itself upon your mind. Envision and believe. The architecture of the future is within you. All ground is fertile. Life begets life. Everything starts as an idea. Desire pulls the uncreated into creation. The alchemist believes in what's to come, in answers and solutions not yet imagined for themselves and the world. Which is really interesting because now I'm seeing all this sort of like an architect, like drawing out a blueprint. There's so much energy about the blue coming in. So maybe there's a blueprint. Something about the uncreated though, it feels kind of like a drop in the ocean is what I just heard there. It could start, and the way that these, like, the little dots here, I know that there's a name for that in like art and painting and things like that, where it's just like, is it pointillism? Where it's like you, instead of brush strokes, for example, you just use points, right? You just use dots. And that creates sort of like a bigger picture once you step back from it. So maybe it's like perhaps you're receiving inspiration or something that feels like it's just a dot. It's like a little small dot, or perhaps you're repeating something over and over again, but that it actually creates a much bigger picture at the end of it, or something that's much, much bigger than itself, like a drop in the ocean. So something that you're desiring to create. But it starts off very small. Thunder, moon, change. There's a significant change happening with something that was once reliable, is how it's coming through with the Iron card. Thunder and lightning. Well, those are two different experiences, right? Like two different senses that come from the same event, which is interesting. So it's like one event, which is essentially the lightning, right? Like the charge going through, but then you hear the thunder after, because sound travels slower than light. But this is coming in as thunder, meaning I feel like maybe something has already happened with the thunder moon. The change has already happened. Like the event, I should say, that caused change or is causing change has happened. It's like the lightning has already struck, but it's like you have to wait until you hear the thunder, which is a little bit delayed because sound just travels slower. There's something about that where it's like, because this is specifying that the thunder, the lightning has already happened is how it's coming through. Something will pierce your awareness. Assessing. Something that's at a distance is perhaps assessing you in some way, like, the Egg Moon Trust and the Realization card. That came out the last time I used it. And then you have Wolf Moon, Hunger. Okay, so I feel like here with the uncreated, it's like something is going to pierce your awareness is how it was coming through. And then you have assessing and the egg moon. So I'm actually seeing this as being like your awareness or your consciousness. And it's kind of like something has already happened is how it's feeling, but perhaps outside of your awareness or outside of your consciousness, like you're not aware of something that happened outside some sort of event perhaps, or a chain of events maybe. And it's like it hasn't quite reached you yet because it just takes time to like travel to you, right? Like sound just travels slower. So it's kind of coming through like that, but it's not, perhaps it is sound. Maybe you will hear something about this, or maybe you might actually be creating something, like if you're in whatever form, like however you express yourself creatively, right? There could be many different ways. You may actually already be receiving sort of like downloads or inspiration, like especially if you're like an artist of some sort, or you just create things, whatever that is for you, or you express yourself, perhaps having to do something with your body as well. Maybe you're receiving inspiration, right? Where there's not necessarily like a source or like, oh, I'm inspired by that thing, so I'm going to recreate it or something. It kind of feels like it's coming out of nowhere, or it's like you're being inspired by something that's actually showing you sort of like what is going to be arriving. It's like you're the egg here. It's really interesting. It says trust. Perhaps there's something that you are hungering for, is kind of how that's coming through. Something that provides nourishment, maybe? It's not this deck. You need balance, it says. Not so much blue. Maybe it's not this one either, but we'll see. It is this one, but I feel like there's some more information that wants to come through before that. Okay, so these lines on this card are drawing my attention. Sometimes I see that as being sort of like sometimes I see this as like electrical wires or like a circuit, especially with all this electricity energy that's coming through. And I sometimes see this iron card as being like a resistor in a circuit, right? Like, so something that absorbs energy, or uses the energy to like transform it, like a light bulb, for example, or whatever. It's a resistor. But it's also looking to me like music, like a music score. So in this case, the square is representing sort of like a rest, right? Like a pause in the music. So it's kind of like there's an energy here where it's like perhaps there's been a pause or a rest or some area of resistance, even maybe because it's coming in with Mars energy. Perhaps an area of resistance where you were having to like push through something or like perhaps even wait for something. A pause, a rest. But that's changing. Seven of Swords. Okay, because that's now looking like the thing that was sitting on something. I sometimes see this card as being like something that is not being expressed, or that something is perhaps being held back in some way. I actually feel like there's an energy there that's like trying to encourage whatever's in the egg to sort of like burst out of the egg. Some sort of like protective shell. But perhaps that energy has been reluctant to for some reason. Five of Cups. That card talks about disappointments. And the Seven of Cups. So you might be, there's strong energy of 7 and 5 coming in. So 5 talks about change. 7 to me talks about sort of like magic and creation and divine connection as well, which is interesting. So there may be something that was like perhaps there was sort of like an energy of interference. It's coming through almost like static. Ten of Swords. That is a tough ending to a situation. And the Death card, which is closure. It's getting closure about a tough, difficult situation. All of these cards are really tricky. It's like I'm seeing some, like there's an energy here that perhaps almost like went into like a hibernation kind of energy, like a protective shell kind of thing with the egg moon, like protecting oneself because there was perhaps like a tough situation, or like there was so much resistance in a particular direction that movement forward in that way was not permitted, or there was just a rest, a prolonged rest in the score, in the music, right? But now it's like lightning has struck. It feels like it has happened already. And it's kind of like the ripples are reaching you. And it's bringing about like closure from a really tough ending. A really tough cycle. Look at all these cards. They're all like, they're all like really dark. Like they're all in black and white except for this one. And it has like these sort of like, there's a hint of blue. It's that snow energy, right? It's kind of like there was like a blanket of snow. It could be like I'm getting sort of an energy of like static or white noise, right? That just sort of like blocks out everything else. So maybe somebody's sort of going through an energy of like, this energy feels so heavy. Like I can't even like open my eyes right now. It's like, it feels like, just like a really heavy blanket or like a really heavy static. Perhaps emotionally, because you do have, 2 cups and 2 swords. A heavy emotional energy that perhaps was being kept sort of like under wraps, like it was just silence. Anyway, there's closure coming about that cycle. And then you have here the 6 of Cups, which is interesting because I sometimes describe the 7 of Cups as being like the 6 cups are upright here. And then if you flip it around, the Ace of Cups is upright. So I feel like here with the 6 of Cups, because this can be a very reliable energy as well with the roots, because it could talk about family as well. Like family and roots might be it might be where you find rest or strength or reliability, right? Like that's sort of where it's coming in, where so if it's like you were trying to move forward in a particular direction that wasn't allowing you to move forward in that way, it's like you went to tend to the roots, or you grounded something, or you went to ground, you went underground to strengthen the roots. Because that's where all the color is, right? The roots are lit up here. Eight of Swords. It's just cups and swords so far. And the Death card. Interesting. Because of that snow energy, right? It's like air and water, but on the cold end of the spectrum, which is interesting. And then at the bottom of the deck, though, you have the sun, right? So, and the Venus card, which is talking about all of this warmth sort of coming into your reading. So it's like there was perhaps a period of like where time slowed down. Interesting. Hold on. I have a sneeze. Okay, so maybe it's something where like time slowed down, or there was like an extended pause, or something like that. But then here's the orange again to balance, right? The Eight of Swords, which is talking about like opening up the wings, right? It's time to unfurl the wings. So again, I personally don't like the traditional meaning of the Eight of Swords, because I feel like it's so much more complex than just like, oh, somebody has a blindfold on. It's not that easy sometimes to know even where the blindfold is. But anyways, so this Eight of Swords to me just talks about like perhaps there has been a time needed to grow, right? Like in a cocoon. That's an extended sort of pause where growth happens, but sort of like within a protective shell, right? So it could be something like that. Four of Swords. You just have swords and cups in this spread right now. That's wild to me. Okay, so this Four of Swords does, again, talk about rest, right? But purposeful rest in preparation of some sort of challenge up ahead is how this card comes through. It's like there are perhaps sort of like swords or a challenge perhaps up ahead, a difficulty, not difficulty, that's not the right word. It's a challenge. It's going to challenge you, is how it comes through, but perhaps in a way that encourages growth. It doesn't feel like it would be defeating, if that makes sense, but it is going to challenge you. So you have 5, 6, 7 of cups, and then 4, 7, 8, 10 of swords, and then the death card. It's tough energy. Six of Wands, and now the butterfly's blue. That's so interesting. Okay, so blue and orange are major colors for you. This card, this might actually be somebody else, actually, is how it's coming through. Perhaps somebody who has already overcome the challenge that you are about to face. The Six of Wands, because that talks about overcoming some sort of difficulty, or this card specifically talks about hope. Perhaps there's somebody who is delivering a message of hope, or it's like they're sort of like the ones who are heralding the change, is what I just heard. Like it's kind of like they're allowing you to hear the thunder, is kind of how it's coming through. They're like knocking on the shell, is how it's feeling. Two of Wands, and then a whole bunch of cards came out. So this card talks to me about aligning to a certain path, and look at all this color returning, because it feels like somebody was almost like in an extended like hibernation, or like had some sort of protective shell. Or was just withdrawn in whatever way because of a tough cycle that was ending and required closure. And it's like the path is opening up again, right? It's kind of like the resistance or the resistor is being removed. And and the path is opening up again. And it's such good news. Like, it feels like relief. Okay. Magician and Temperance coming out together. Which is so interesting, because here's the fire that was being waited for, right? It's like that's what was needed in the situation, is how that's feeling. And the Magician card. Hold on. So it's like melting all the ice, whatever that is, or the snow, right? It's kind of like there was I sometimes see this heron as like somebody who grants passage to something, right? It's kind of like, this is the way that you go. That's sort of how I see this card. You may also be seeing signs of sort of like maybe like a loved one who has passed, who is sort of like confirming to you that that you're on the right path, is how it's coming through. So if somebody has been waiting a really long time for something, it's like it's finally time, is how it's feeling to me. It's like almost like the final stages of something. It's just like the last bit of ice needs to melt, is kind of how it's coming through. And it's like your passage is clear. This Magician card is also really interesting. And it's wanting to be paired with the Sun here, because they're both one, right? The Magician is one. The Magician has won, is how it wants to come through. So some sort of battle. And I feel like, as well, because I sometimes see this card as being like somebody who has all of the tools that they need in order to create something or whatever, but it's kind of like there's still there's a pause in this energy as well, because it's like, for whatever reason, it sometimes comes through as being like someone who's hesitating on creating something, but today it's not that, because it's kind of like, it's almost like the path was blocked. So the Magician had to pause. But now with the uncreated energy coming in, it's like there's something really magical that's going to be created. Just what you need is how it's going through. It could also be a collaboration between water and fire, right? Because you have the blue and the orange here that are almost like creating something together, is kind of how that's feeling to me. So perhaps there's sort of like a combination of water and fire energies that are coming together in some way. Kind of getting the energy now of Elemental, if you've watched that Pixar movie. Balance of opposites. Daughter of Wands. And the Nine of Wands. It's I find that so interesting because it was all swords and cups, right? Up until the Four of Swords. And now it's all fire. It's all wands. Six of Wands, Two of Wands, Nine of Wands, Daughter of Wands, Magician and Temperance, which I'm also putting as fire. And the Sun card at the bottom of the deck. Okay, that's where I'm going to end the reading. But, so, I'm not going to pull more cards for that. So, some sort of path is opening up. I feel like there has been some sort of, like, tricky, like, entanglement or, like, energy that was blocked, or like an extended rest period that was needed perhaps or necessary in order for some sort of growth to happen. I feel like the next step or the next part of the journey might be just like breaking out of the shell, whatever that is, and it's coming through with being sort of like building something, right? It's like, or exploring something, or perhaps like, so definitely there's some sort of energy of creation here. Inspiration as well. Passion, perhaps. Something that's fun and playful is how it's coming through. Because all of those cards feel like very, very serious or very heavy. Again, it just felt like a really heavy, like static is just how I'm gonna describe it. But then it suddenly shifts into all this like color all of a sudden. Because that could also be a really difficult shift to make of like somebody who's like in sort of like a heavy emotional or I just heard mental anguish, right? Like moving from that kind of state into something that's hopeful and bright and curious again. Like that's a very big shift. I feel like it's with the support of someone, right? Like somebody is helping in that process. To perhaps shift a perspective here, right? Because it's kind of like the Magician in this card is always like turned sort of like the other way. So it's kind of like perhaps shifting to look at, it's like somebody showing you, if this is you, like, look over here. That's what it's like, this is something that is going to be created here. And it does talk about building something. Building on top of something is what I just heard. So I feel like maybe a significant part of this was just like laying a foundation. That could have been it with the iron and the reliability, like making sure something was like incredibly stable, incredibly strong, and very reliable. Like it was not going to fail is how it's going through. So maybe somebody went through like a really like they were building an incredibly strong foundation is how it's coming through. It will not fail. Okay. One more card from the elementals. The energy is coming in really strongly for this reading. Like, it's somebody with like a very clear purpose. A clear destination is what I just heard as well. cleansing storms. That's the lightning and the thunder, right? And all of this water is like being drained, is how it's coming through. Cleansing storms. To make equal the equator. Yeah, it's like, I feel like there's some sort of storm energy that was like clearing something out. Or waking something up. And it's like, now it's time to like move forward, right? It's like, now it's time to go that way. It's like going the way that was blocked before. And then you have, this is 23 and this is 5, right? So it's kind of like two things that were separate are now coming together, is how that's coming through. And then you have the change wind at the bottom of the deck. So you've changed twice. You have lots of storm, thunder, lightning energy. And shifting into fire or sun energy. So it's a very powerful like creational energy that's coming through here. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I hope that was helpful. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.